Let me ask you a question, man. You ever wonder why, like, nobody, can I get somebody to finish a project? Like, I'm teaching this workshop, right? I got all these really talented writers, like these great performers, and nobody ever finishes anything. Like, they come up with great ideas, you know, they get themselves all pre-produced, they pick the right collaborators, they do all this stuff, and they never seem to finish. What do you think that is? I don't know. I mean, I think about it all the time because to me, like the most important thing is to finish, you know? Like I think anybody can come up with a great idea, you know? And anybody can even write something. Although that's a hard part. Like, there's something to being an author. But I mean, I guess what I'm saying is anybody could come up with a great idea, but to actually complete something, maybe the completion is in the writing too. I could see that. But if you're also producing it, you know what I mean? Like if you're performing it or if you're directing a performer or something like that, finish your project. Like what I think, I mean, honestly, I think people are afraid to finish because I personally think people put too much on a project, which is kind of weird. It's weird to say that because, obviously you should approach every project with everything that you have. But also, I don't know, I think people need to understand, like, you're going to do another project after this. This is one of many. Just get it done. This is what you do. This is your life. This is what you do for a living. This is why you wake up in the morning. And this is just one of many. You're going to express yourself so many times, like I try to tell people, like, don't put so much on it so that it paralyzes you to move forward and do another project. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't look at it as, no project, in my opinion, is your life's work, the greatest thing you've ever done. I mean, maybe when you look back and you look back on all your stuff, you could say, you know what? That project right there was the best thing I ever did. It represents me the best. It kind of encompasses everything that I believe in and everything that I studied and everything that I practiced. So maybe you could say that, but you got to have like a lot of projects under your belt before you could say something like that, And personally, I think people are afraid to finish. You know what I mean? I think they think this is what people are going to judge me on. I'm never going to have any more opportunities unless this, becomes big and popular and everybody loves it. It's well reviewed, and I think people get afraid, like it's going to end their career, or maybe people are afraid of being defined, which is kind of ironic because, like a great artist, it's hard to define them. Even if somebody's like very stylized, like Stevie Wonder or, Billie Eilish, somebody who you could say there's nobody like that person. Like that person has that style, but yet, if they're a great artist, they're always going to kind of try to push themselves to get out of their comfort zone, to maybe go past a project that they just finished that was highly acclaimed. And maybe they're like, I don't want to do that again. Prince was like that. Miles Davis was like that. And, they both got criticized for that. Like when you try to do something new. I mean, if you're an artist, you want to grow. You want to do new things. You want to find new places to stretch out your creativity. You want to build the muscle and get stronger and be able to do different things. You want to be confident enough to fail. And I think a lot of these artists, they're afraid to fail, So you can't fail unless you finish. Because you can always say, I was working on it, it didn't happen because of this, or somebody pulled out on me, or somebody bailed. Like, I could have said that with my last movie. Like I had 2 other actors that both bailed on me, and I had to rewrite the whole script, and it added 8 months to the project. I had to write new dialogue because I wound up doing it all by myself again. But I wasn't going to let that stop me. It's like, okay, this can't happen, so now this has to happen. And as much as I think the original script was better, that's just me. Like, it doesn't even matter what I think. Because, once you finish, this is the other thing that a lot of artists don't understand. Once you finish, it's not yours anymore, Now it's the universe owns it. You know what I mean? Like the people, the audience, it's their project. You know, that's why you should never qualify what you did by giving excuses to what could have been or what it should have been or whatever. Like, I mean, I talk about that amongst friends. You know what I mean? Like I say, man, this could have been a lot better because my original script was better, and you know, I'm disappointed or whatever. But it's like really inconsiderate of the artist to say that to an audience member, because they might have thought that they just experienced the greatest work of art that they've ever experienced in their life, and now you're making excuses for it and saying it wasn't, you know, wasn't as good as it could have been, and that you're just screwing up, you know, you're fucking up their experience. And why would you do that? I mean, it's stupid when you think about it, because then they're going to look at you differently too. Like, you know, they might have thought it was the greatest thing ever, and then they might go, you know what? Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's not that good. So, you know, you're fucking yourself up. But I think there's a lot of reasons why people don't finish. And I think it's like, I think it's what sets great artists apart. I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, and I was saying, you know, and this is just my personal thing. This doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but in my opinion, you're not an artist unless you keep doing this work and unless you make projects that you finish. Like, this is your life. This is your life's work, and this is what you do. And you don't abandon it. You don't go do something else. And, you know, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with people who do other things. It doesn't mean they're less talented. You know, there are probably plenty of people who are more gifted than some of the greatest artists who ever lived. You know, there are probably better trumpet players than Miles Davis, probably better piano players than Keith Jarrett, better actors than Sir Laurence Olivier or Tom Hanks or whatever. But the artist stays there no matter what, even if they're starving, you know, even if they're having issues, because they have no choice. They can't do anything else, you know. So you might be talented, you might be gifted, but you're not an artist. Part of the definition of an artist is somebody who stays in there. You might be artistically inclined, and you might be gifted off the charts. You might have more talent than anybody you've ever seen or anybody's ever seen. But unless you stay in there and do the work, you're not an artist. You know, it's like anything else. You know, you might be the most gifted plumber ever. You might be able to fix anything, any challenging kind of, you know, water pipe leaks or whatever. But if you don't practice that, if you don't do it, if you don't make that your living, if you take a job with a corporation, or if you become a guitar player in a band or whatever, you're not a plumber anymore. You're good at plumbing, you know. And maybe a lot of people would look at it as a waste of your talent, but that's none of your business. That's for them. You know, you don't have to be involved with that. So I don't buy that. You know what I mean? So anyway, what I'm talking about is, like, I wish more people would come up with an idea and see it to fruition. Like, look at it like a meal, you know? You think about, what do you want to eat for dinner tonight? And you either order something in and you get it, and then you unwrap it, and then you eat it, and then you wash the dishes. You complete the whole task. Or you think of something and you get all the ingredients and you cook them, and then you put them on the table and you eat them, and you do all, you know, like, you finish. You don't, like, come up with something and then buy the ingredients, put them on the counter, start mixing everything together, and then go away and don't finish, you know? And that's actually a good metaphor, because if you do that consistently, you will starve to death. And I believe a real artist who doesn't finish will starve to death and no longer exist as an artist. You lose your, you know, your definition of yourself as an artist. Because if you're not finishing, if you're not making anything, if you're just thinking of stuff all the time, I mean, I think people think of stuff, you know, people think if they come up with the greatest idea in the world, they got something special. Man, people think of the greatest idea in the world ever, every minute of every day, because it's easy to do that. Anybody could think of something that's unattainable, that's undoable, that's unmakeable. Anybody could do that. You know, just because you have a great idea that nobody's ever heard of before, it doesn't mean shit. Because it doesn't mean anybody can do it. You know, I can think of a great idea, like, I have a great idea. I'm going to create a story of well, actually, I'm going to create in real life somebody who can jump over a house, a 3-story house. Like, it's a great idea, but, you know, like, it can't be done. You know, I mean, at least now, in this world. Yeah, whatever, man. So, yeah, I wish people would finish, you know, and it's frustrating to me when I teach, and that's why I create these workshops. And like, I'll call a playwriting workshop a 10-minute play workshop, but then I don't keep to that 10 minutes, you know. And a lot of people think I should be more, you know, kind of strict about that, and make sure that they, you know, stay to 10 minutes. But I'm like, you know what? My only requirement is that you finish. I don't care if it's an hour and a half. I don't care if it's 2 minutes. If it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, kudos to you. I applaud you, standing ovation. You are a motherfucking artist because you're finishing. And if you do that consistently, you remain an artist. And, you know, many people are born artists, but if you don't actually be active in the art, the act of being an artist, you can't continue to. That's the difference between somebody who's good, somebody who's talented, and an artist. And I believe that that's the fear. That's why people don't finish, because they're afraid of finding the best of themselves. Because to find the best of yourself, you have to see the worst of yourself along the way. You have to fail. You got to make a lot of mistakes. You know, you got to, you know, in order to like get out of your comfort zone and push the envelope and find new places in your work, you have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to not be good at what you're doing in that moment and then overcome it. And the great artists will overcome it. And they might not even land in the destination that they originally thought of, but they're going to land somewhere unique unto themselves. And that's an artist, you know, to never quit, never give up, never give in, deal with the lumps, you know, deal with the bumps and bruises, and finish. And then let it go, give it to the audience, give it to the universe, and start again. And then do the same thing. And then start again, and again, and again, and so on and so forth, forever. Like, that is what an artist does. An artist finishes. An artist comes up with an idea, goes through the process, which is equally as important and as meaningful as the finished product, but you must get to the finished product. A lot of people think the finished product is the most important part, and it is for the general public, you know, for the audiences, for the people that review you, for the people who judge you, for the people who buy tickets or who stream your movie or go to the movie theater or whatever. For them, the end product might be the most important part, but for the people who really understand the artist, the most important part is what got you there. And that starts with coming up with an idea. And also, by the way, it starts with all the work that you've done to get to that point, to master your craft, to be who you are, to be even able to apply what you do to this idea. Like, there's so much work involved, and that is to be respected, to be admired, and to respect it within yourself means to allow yourself to finish, to force yourself to finish, to never negotiate with yourself. That's an artist. Because, you know, like I tell people all the time, you know, being an artist, it's not so much what I do, it's what I am. It's who I am. Like, I have no choice. Like, this is me. I don't know how to do anything else. And, you know, some people might think that's crazy or stupid or whatever, because, you know, I don't have a gigantic house somewhere or 9 houses, or I don't travel. You know, I haven't been financially awarded things, you know, at the highest level, you know. But I pay my bills, I'm living, and I love every moment that I get to create, every moment that I get to go through a process, a journey. I love that. That's what life is for me. So that's what I want for the artist, to come up with something and to finish.